There are many things in this life that hold us back, that limit us, that keep us from achieving what we set out to do, or going where we want to go, or having the life that we desire. And among those things that is perhaps the most debilitating is fear. Fear causes more damage than you might realize. In spite of what they say, 90%, according to a study that was done, 90% of chronic patients who see physicians chronically for something over and over and over again and have one common symptom, in 90% of the cases, the first symptom they will state is fear. This is the opinion of a well-known American internist, as expressed in a roundtable on psychosomatic medicine, that there is a consensus, a growing body of consensus of specialists, saying that fear of losing a job, of old age, of being exposed sooner or later, manifests itself as clinical symptoms. Sometimes fear is more than just superficial anxiety. It is showing up in the medical system. It is showing up in physical issues that we have. This deep-seated fear that and of course then we say, of course, no, I'm not afraid of anything. Then that, of course, that patient goes from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor, and no one can solve it because it's not a medical problem. Fear is something we all have to deal with. All of us. And fear can be a blessing, to be clear. Fear is a good thing in its right dosage and in the right positions. I mean, fear is supposed to keep us from harm. Fear is supposed to drive us to action. Fear can be a good thing, but like all good things, it can be twisted into something destructive. I think that at all times we've all been there. All of us have had times where we're afraid of something and has kept us from doing something that was good. Something that we should do, or something that we needed to do. But for one reason or another, fear has kept us from doing it. Fear is a powerful force in our life, for either good or ill. Again, fear is not the enemy. An appropriate amount of fear in the right places is a good thing. But how do we deal with fear appropriately? This is the subject of this series that we're going to do in December. And you're saying, how in the world does this have anything to do with Christmas? Don't wait, just wait, it's coming. But each week we're going to look at a different aspect of fear and try to help us to see what the Bible not only says about it, but how it affects our lives and our relationship with God. And today we're going to talk about the fear of abandonment. I have a friend who I've had routine contact with over the last several months. I mean, years, but especially the last several months. And he's having trouble. And a lot of it comes down to fear. And so we had quite a long conversation, actually, this last week about how fear is affecting his life. And I want to give him credit because it has really, really helped me to focus. I already planned to do this, but that conversation really helped me to focus on the things that... Fear is something we all say we don't want to do. I don't think anyone here would ever say, I want to be afraid. That'd be a weird thing for you to say. With that said, we tend to nurse fear. We tend to feed fear. And we just worry and worry and worry and worry. And if we can't find anything to worry about, well then all you got to do is turn on this television and turn on the news, and then you can find a whole new slew of things to worry about. But one thing that we are afraid of is this fear of abandonment, this fear of being alone. Each and every one of us at one time or another has had a friend, a family member who has left us, whether they died, whether they ended the friendship, whether they just moved away. We have all lost something, and that plants a seed of fear within us. That, okay, so I've experienced this in the past, I don't like this loss, and now I'm concerned about everyone else in my life. Am I going to lose them? And some of us respond so dramatically that, well, I don't want to lose anybody, so I will push them away so I'll feel like it's my idea. And there's no one, no one would ever do that. Wink, wink, wink. But all of us have this fear of losing someone, of losing people, and that sting, that burn that hit us just now lives with us. And this fear continues and continues and continues. And no matter how much you like your alone time, we are built to have connections with other people. I mean, not every one of you is a weird extrovert like me. Some of you actually like to be alone, but only in short doses. I like to be alone in small doses. It's kind of fun, you know, because when my family leaves for whatever reason, I don't know why, but sometimes my wife will go to like a conference or something, or she'll be gone for a day. Boy, that's fun. I get to eat what I want. I get to watch my guy army movies. It's great. But I want it in very small doses. Very small doses. Because no matter how much you like your alone time, we are built for community. And even if your entire community is a very small group, we are built for that. And so when God calls us to do something risky, like telling friends and family about Jesus, we are understandably afraid of the outcome. We don't want to lose those precious relationships. We don't want to be alone. We fear being rejected. We fear being abandoned. We fear being left out in the cold. Or maybe that's not your fear. Maybe your fear is that God has abandoned you in some way. You look back on your life and you see a trail of destruction, and it can only mean that God has somehow abandoned you. And you see and you think that these are the results of a God who doesn't care about you and the people around you. Has God abandoned me? Or maybe you feel that your sin has pushed God so far away that He's declared you a lost cause. And you're afraid that no matter what you do, you have to run. You have to run from God or run to God, and He won't take you back. These kinds of things run around in our mind. Because again, while fear is a good and healthy thing in the appropriate place and in the appropriate dosage level, it is a powerful weapon used by the enemy to drag us down. So what can we do about it? Some of the scenarios I've talked about might seem a little foreign to you because not all of us struggle with the same aspect of fear. But each and every one of us probably caught a little bit of something in what I just said. Because we all are afraid of abandonment in one way or another. And today we're going to look at a particular instance in the life of Joshua, Moses, and the people of Israel to look at this issue. If you'll open your Bibles to Deuteronomy 31, please. To the second to last chapter. Deuteronomy 31. In Deuteronomy, Moses is told by God that he will not be entering the Promised Land. He's been leading these people. He led them out of Egypt. He led them to Mount Sinai. He got the law. He's been telling them all kinds of stuff. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Moses wrote all of these books. He really has been working with these people. He led them through the desert when they were wandering in the desert. And then, okay, we're about to go in, and God says, you're not going. That must have been such a gut punch to him. But the dude's getting pretty old by this point. We're going to read here in a second. He says he's 120 years old. How many of you people want to lead a group of people on a conquest mission at 120? Any takers? Oh.
Only if we go slow.
Only if you go slow and you can drive your hover around?
That's right.
Oh. So he writes this letter, Deuteronomy. This letter, it's a letter. It's a speech that reminds them of the law that God has given them to protect them when they go into the Promised Land. That law is not just a plaque you put up on the wall and forget about, but this law will help facilitate the people staying connected to God, honoring the one who is really going to fight their battles and give them the land. That's a big deal. But as the book comes to a close, Moses addresses the crowd and Joshua about his transition into leadership and what Joshua is supposed to do about that. So he first addresses the people. I want to read with you Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 1 through 6. And of course, Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 1 through 6. Then Moses went out and spoke these words to all Israel. I am now 120 years old, and I am no longer able to lead you. The Lord has said to me, you shall not cross the Jordan. The Lord your God himself will cross over ahead of you. He will destroy these nations before you, and you will take possession of their land. Joshua also will cross over ahead of you, as the Lord said, and the Lord will do to them what he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, whom he destroyed along with their land. The Lord will deliver them to you, and you must do to them all that I have commanded you. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Remember, this conversation takes place right before they cross the Jordan River into what we call the Holy Land, Israel, the Promised Land, that whole thing. And he's kind of... There's people already living there. They're scary, you're right. We've actually had this problem already. See, 40 years ago, God had led them right up here, and God said, all right, you go in, I'll basically drive them out for you, you get to go in and watch. Bring your popcorn. He didn't actually say that, but I'm going to do this for you. Okay, that sounds great. Let's send in spies to have a look at the land, though, so that we kind of know the layout, we kind of know where stuff is. So the spies go in, and when they come back, their report is, there are big people there. They have weapons. They have cities. I wet myself. They didn't actually say that either, but it kind of feels that way when you're reading the story. And God's like, I'm going to do this for you. Why are you afraid? Because they're big. I don't want to get too deep into this, but I really don't think a couple inches and a couple pounds means a whole lot to God, as far as like how much effort it's going to take him to defeat them. But apparently don't tell them. And so God says, all right, if you don't trust me, I'm going to teach you to trust me. You're going to go wander in the desert. All these people, thousands upon thousands, perhaps millions of people are going to wander in the desert where there isn't enough food, there isn't enough water. And I'm going to take care of you and teach you to trust me. To teach you that I will do what I say I'm going to do. And of course, I know that you guys have never had this experience with your own children, and of course when you were children you never did this. But you got in trouble for something. You failed to do a chore, or you did something wrong, or whatever, and then the punishment came down. Well, now you're going to get a spanking, or now you're going to, be grounded for however long, or whatever. And so then, again, never you, never your children, but I know I would then, well, okay, I'll vacuum now. Sorry, too late. You needed to do it when I asked you to do it. So they tried to go in. They tried to go in to the Promised Land after God had said, it's time to go wander in the desert so you can learn. They tried to go in and they got their tails kicked. Because, yeah, you're absolutely right. They're big. They've got weapons. They've got cities. You don't stand a chance. But it was never about you. You just got to go in and watch me work. But because you were too afraid, because you didn't trust me, we're going to go wander in the desert. Are you ready to come now where I've asked you to go? And so then they wander in the desert for these 40 years. His whole goal was to teach them to trust him. And what I find really interesting, though, is that, okay, so they did a wrong thing. They didn't obey God. They didn't trust God. They didn't obey God. They directly contradicted him. Because Moses, this is 40 years ago, Moses comes out and says, hey, wait. God has already dealt with this issue. We don't trust him. All right, go out in the desert. But you'll notice, God did not abandon them when they went out into the desert. This isn't like go to your room. He didn't send them to their room away from everyone. He sent them out into the desert and he went with them. Some of the most interesting texts in the entire Bible about God's presence happens during the wandering. During the wandering, of course, now this is something you're probably aware of. You're probably aware of this, that during the wandering they were led by day with a pillar of cloud and by night with a pillar of fire. Maybe you remember that. What you might not know, and those of you who have been on our Wednesday night Bible study, you know what I'm talking about, but for the rest of you, there is in the Old Testament, the law that is given for when they're wandering, there is a layout for when they camp. When they camp, they're not supposed to camp just hither and thither. There's a layout for how they're supposed to camp. And the layout is the tabernacle, where God, the portable tent where we meet God, is right in the middle, and a quarter of the people camp on the north side, a quarter of the people camp on the west side, a quarter of the people on the east side, and a quarter of the people on the south side, all around the tabernacle. And there's a description in the Old Testament about God's presence in the tabernacle as light, that when they are in their camp, even at night, there is a light shining out from the tabernacle, lighting up everywhere. They didn't need a yard light, they had God. God did not abandon them, even in their sin. God did not abandon them, even when they said, "We don't trust you." God did not abandon them, even when they rejected Him. And so when Moses is standing here saying, when you went wandering, God went ahead of you. God went with you. And then Moses mentions Sihon and Og. Remember, those of you who are on our Wednesday night Bible study, remember I said that keeps coming up over and over and over again? So, if you can imagine your Israel geography. I should have put a map up, but I wasn't that smart. If you can imagine your Israel geography, so I'm going to kind of do this backwards. Got a little bit of a map right here, and you've got the Mediterranean Sea over here. You've got this little strip of land that we call Israel. Got the Jordan River, and then there's a desert out this direction and to the south. And this area was where they were wandering for those 40 years. It's not overly clear exact. I mean, the Bible records all the places that they went, but the thing is, the desert, we don't know where a lot of those places are. But they're over here in the desert. And when they're getting ready to cross the Jordan, they're getting ready to cross back into this strip of land that's between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. Because this is where Israel is. And over on this side, while they're wandering around over here, there are people that live over here. I know we say desert, but even in America, some of the biggest cities in the entire United States are in the desert. I guess you can't farm that crud, so you might as well put people there. But anyway, but they're out there, and while they're walking through this area, they come across several kings and their countries, specifically Amorites. And they say, if you're reading in the Old Testament, it says that they came up to these kings and they said, "We would like to walk through your land." And the king says, "No. Well, hey, we're not going to plunder you. We're not going to attack you. We just want to walk through your land." Why do you want to walk through our land? Because, did you see the pillar of cloud? I'm supposed to be following that. We're going to go, we'll pay for any damage that we do. It even says that. They offered to pay for any damage that was done, any water that was drank while they were there. And Sihon, who was the king of the Amorites in the south, said no to the point that we're going to attack you. I didn't do anything to you. Yeah, but I don't want you anywhere near me. We're going to attack you. And I don't know, if I'm just wandering around in the desert, I'm probably not spending loads of time creating weapons, and I'm not spending loads of time developing fighting tactics. Not to mention the fact that my whole crew is with me. My women, my children, and all of my animals. This is not a great military setup. So what happens? God shows up and Sihon is killed and his army is wiped out. And oh, well, there's nobody left. I guess this is our land now. And time goes along, and the northern border of that, because again, this is still the desert. You kind of got to move around in the desert when you got all these people there. Sure, this is our land now, but there's a heck of a bunch of people here. And we can't sustain all on this one little bit of land, so we're still moving. Besides, the pillar of cloud moved. We got to follow. So they go, and can we go through your land? This another king named Og, and Og had, apparently he didn't pay attention to what happened earlier, because he did the exact same thing. No, you can't come through my land. Not only that, but I'm going to attack you, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But whatever, he did. Same thing. God showed up. Og is killed. His army is killed, and I guess now we've got this land too. And so if you look on if you're flipping in your Bible maps, at the back, you will notice that in the section in the Old Testament where the tribes of Israel have their land acquisition, 3 of them have land acquisition on that side of the Jordan, because that's the land that we got because Sihon and Og didn't know how to say no nicely. But God showed up and God protected them. Why are they in the desert? They're in the desert because they rejected God. They're in the desert because they rejected Him. They're in the desert because they didn't trust Him. They're in the desert because they did wrong. And where was God? Right with them the whole time, defending them. Is this what I do when I send my daughter to a room? No. I send my daughter to a room sometimes because I'm just a kid. He went with them. He went with them. When we are dumb and make destructive choices, of course there are consequences. When you reject God, when you disobey His law, or even if you don't, even if it's somebody else, because sometimes the problems in our lives are not, most of the times the problems in my life are my fault. If I'm going to be honest, most of the time they're my fault. But on those times it isn't my fault, God's still with me. God still takes care of me. Either way, and sometimes the destruction and damage, does that mean that God has abandoned us? No. In fact, Jesus said in John 16, Jesus said, I have told you these things so that you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. You're going to have trouble. I don't care how much of a Jesus follower you are going to have trouble. You're going to have struggle. You're going to have pain. I wish that wasn't true. But it's true. God will walk with you through the consequences of your choices and the choices of others. God will not abandon you. This promise is repeated directly to Joshua in the next couple of verses, 7 and 8. You'll read with me Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 7 through 8. Then Moses summoned Joshua and said to him in the presence of Israel, be strong and courageous, for you must go with this people into the land that the Lord swore to their ancestors to give them. And you must divide it among them as their inheritance. The Lord Himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Now just to be clear, the word forsake means to abandon. So you could read that, the Lord will not abandon you. It says God will never do that. God will go before them. We know this because God has done this in the past. God has called the people to do something, and every time that He has done that, in the past, He has walked with them. And as we said at the start, fear is healthy, appropriately, but irrational fear can be debilitating. And as we consider how we can trust God in our lives, how do we do that? Is it blind faith? Has God called us to blind faith? No, I do not believe that God has called us to blind faith. Am I supposed to just have blind trust? No, you don't have blind trust. Would you ask a stranger to watch your children while you're gone for a week on vacation? No. You'd be an idiot. CPS should be called on you. Just random person on the side of the road. Hey, will you watch my kids for a week? What's wrong with you? Has God called you to trust Him just because? No. God says you can trust me. You know how you should know? because of every time I have been faithful in the past. Because of what I have done in your life, in the lives of your family, in the lives of your friends, throughout history, in the past. You can look, you can see. I have a track record, because that's how you do this. When you want to have a babysitter watch your kids, you ask around and you see who your friends have used. And I certainly am not going to let some teenager who I've never had, even if they come highly recommended, going to watch my kids for several days. Ain't happening. I've got to vet you myself a little, or more sure, a lot, because no, I'm good. I don't trust you that way. That's not how trust works. Trust isn't given away. Well, neither is it with God. God's not a fool. He created this. God in the past has stood with Israel. God in the past has stood with the early church. God has stood throughout church history. God has stood with my family, and God has stood with me. Here a couple weeks back, not weeks, I say weeks, here about a year ago, we had some time where we had a couple of our people come up and do testimonies. Annie was one. One of the things that we did with our testimonies, the reason why we tell a testimony, the reason why we tell God's story in our life is to say, I have seen God work in my life in this place, and in this place, and in this place. And it is a practice that helps us to remember what God has done. But then also I can learn from your story, and I can see how God is faithful. My family has been through some really tough times. I'm going to be honest, it has. But when I started to tell those stories, I found so many people that God had walked through similar things. God had been with them. God had not abandoned them. And so despite the garbage that has gone through my life, I know that God has been there to support me. I have seen it personally. Did I want to go through that pain? Of course not. Did I want to go through that struggle? Of course not. But He has helped me through the pain, the rebuilding of my life that has taken place. And now every time He has been there. Not once has He been absent in my life, even when, frankly, I deserved it. It is sometimes hard for us to see that fact because life is so hard. It is really hard to see hope when you're at the bottom of a pit. It is really hard to see a future when facing death. But this is what God's presence in our lives brings to us. When we face the fear of friends leaving us and being alone, we know that God will walk with us. We know that we have a family in the church, weird though we are, and we can be known and cared for despite what happens elsewhere. When we face fear of God rejecting us because of our sin, we can see that He's never done that, ever. He has walked with. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't consequences. Of course there are consequences. Of course there are consequences. Life, yes. But did God say, you sinned, I don't want to talk to you again? No, He never said that. He walks with us despite our sin. And when we face the fear of God sending us somewhere and then abandoning us in the middle, we can see both in Scripture and in our lives that also God has never done that. Can we completely eliminate all fear? Of course not. No matter how many times you've skydived, I had a friend who was a skydiver, and he says no matter how many times you've skydived, there's a reason why people call it an adrenaline rush. Because no matter how many times you've done it, there's still a chance it ain't going to open. Which is why I'm on the ground. But no matter how many times you've done it, it's still a rush. Because risk. There's always risk. There's always fear. I don't think that even if I could, for the sake of argument, if I could eliminate fear in your life, I think that would be a curse. Because fear keeps us from driving out, from pulling out in front of the car, from playing on the center line. Fear can be a healthy thing. But the enemy, Satan, takes what is healthy, takes what is good, takes what is a blessing, and twists it into something that keeps us from honoring God and going where He's called us to go. And we are going to, over the next several weeks, look at the way that fear affects our life. But for today, this is almost a direct quote directly out of Deuteronomy. Do not be afraid, for the Lord your God will personally go ahead of you. He will never fail you nor abandon you. Some of you have wonderful families. Dozens and dozens of kids. So many, an obnoxious number of grandkids. And the concept of you being alone, at least from your family's perspective, is kind of ludicrous because you have so many people. And some of you barely have any family at all. Some of you have a great family but don't have good connection with them. Some of you have lost friends. Some of you have struggled to find your place in this world. Some of you live alone. Life's a struggle sometimes. And this fear of aloneness, this fear of abandonment, especially as we get older, is a real fear. I am here to tell you with everything that I am, with everything within my being, God will never fail you, nor abandon you. Never. I don't care what you've done. I don't care what you've said. There are still consequences. Don't get me wrong. There are still consequences to behavior. But in the middle of those consequences, God will be sitting right there beside you. In the middle of where you go, God will go with you. He will be there. Recognize Him. And then there's the group of us goofy people here at the church that will be here for you too. But we are flawed. We are flawed, we are stupid. I can promise you very few things about myself. One of the things is that I will try to love you and try to care for you. The other things I can promise you is I'm going to say and do something really stupid. I'm going to offend you. I'm going to make you mad. If I haven't done so yet, don't worry, it's coming. I know it's because I'm human. God isn't though. God's perfect. And He will never abandon you nor fail you. If fear is trapping you in your mind and heart, know that whatever it is that you are facing, God has been faithful in the past, and He will be faithful today. Father, thank you that you are always with us. Thank you that you love us so much, and that you will never fail us. And you will never leave. Help us to trust you and to remember that as we live our lives. That no matter what happens with our friends and our family, you will always be with us. And we love you and we thank you.